To give yourself the best chances of success in your A-level maths exams, in addition to knowing the various techniques that you learn about as part of your course, you need to understand what you learn during your course. Knowing is not the same as understanding. Many A-level math students know how to differentiate functions. They know how to solve quadratic equations or reproduce the proof that the square root of 2 is irrational. But in many cases, they don't understand what they're doing. They can't properly interpret the operation of differentiation or interpret the derivative of a function. They struggle to interpret the solutions of quadratic equations in different contexts. And they often don't understand why the proof that the square root of 2 is irrational does in fact show that the square root of 2 is irrational. The fact is that you cannot effectively do mathematics if you don't understand mathematics. You can get by with knowledge and imitation alone, and you can to a certain extent give the impression of understanding without really understanding, but eventually the bottom falls out for you. And very often the bottom falls out partway through the A-level maths course for a lot of people. It's entirely possible to get through GCSE maths and potentially do very well with relatively little understanding. Fact. Unfortunately, this can give certain people the impression that the way that they're going about learning mathematics is a good way. And sadly, this is often not the case. Now, what distinguishes those who understand from those who do not? It's not really a single thing. But there may be many indications that somebody doesn't understand. So, for example, maybe somebody can use a calculator to find one solution to the equation cos x equals a fifth in the range 0 less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 360 degrees. But they can't determine the second solution, or they can't explain why the second solution is actually a solution. Maybe someone can sketch the graph of the equation y equals x squared plus 3x plus 2, showing the coordinates of the points of intersection with the axes, but doesn't understand how to determine the solutions to the quadratic inequality x squared plus 3x plus 2 is greater than or equal to 0. I could go on. And the problem with not understanding is that it makes it very difficult to decide, especially in new or unfamiliar contexts, when certain theorems and techniques apply. Those who don't understand often consistently try to use inappropriate techniques to try to solve problems. Now, don't get me wrong. We're all human, we all make mistakes, and even those who understand well can decide to use an inappropriate technique in error. But often these people who understand eventually see why the technique that they've decided to use is inappropriate. But those who don't understand often don't ever see why the technique is unsuitable. They just know that it doesn't seem to be working. Or in some cases, they don't even see that it's just not working. So lack of understanding makes problem solving almost impossible and really limits you to just routine problems where you've already been shown exactly which steps to follow. So when learning mathematics, if you want to give yourself the best chances of success, you need to try to understand what you're doing. Try to get to the underlying logic of an argument. When you see an implication in an argument, do you understand why this implies that? Understanding is something that just develops quite naturally through asking why and finding a satisfactory answer to that question. Why do points of intersection between two graphs correspond to the solutions of certain simultaneous equations? Why do we reject the null hypothesis when certain probabilities are small enough? Why does the proof that there is no greatest prime number actually work? This will require consistent effort over a period of time. And there's no shortcut to understanding, and there isn't necessarily one thing that I can tell you to do. All I can do, all anybody else can do, is try to guide you towards what might be useful to you, but ultimately you have to find your own way to understand.